morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
I guess there will always be things that don't seem to make much sense. For example, in the world of horses.
Have you ever caught a rope under a horse's tail? Now, you'd think an animal in the top 10 of intelligence would lift his tail up and let it fall out, wouldn't you? But no.
Well, that's Baxter Black, of course, and he'll have an amazing story of what happens when that horse's tail clamps down, but this time it was not on a rope. The Rangeland News looks at where food prices are headed.
Beef, for example, is up 10% from a year ago now, so we could see beef prices decline next year by maybe as much as 2.5%, still well above pre-COVID levels.
On the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I'll give you another personal example about how trying to get the job done in a hurry set a young horse back. I'd been bringing this horse along, and it took me a long time to fix it, and we'll tell you what we had to do. Back in November, the well-known and highly respected photographer of Western life, Kim Tayler, suffered some very serious injuries when her horse fell through the ice on a beaver dam. Now, Ben Crane and Ryan Fritz did a great Facebook Live fundraising concert, and that's going to help. And she is slowly recovering, but still having a tough time. Kim was a guest on this show a while back, and I really enjoyed her total respect for getting it right in her beautiful photos.
You know, if you got a ball cap, you might not end up in my day planner or my calendar, because it's not just the look, it's also what you're capable of doing, but my heart still holds true to the traditional.
You'll hear more of Kim's thoughts today, and in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight.
He knows blue's a steer, red's from Texas, black's a large animal vet. He's a cowboy-booted prince, awash in operating debt.
You'll hear what a Westerner is from Doris Daley. And if you want to see what a real Westerner is, look at one of Kim Taylor's photographs. And if you want to hear what a real Westerner is, listen to this one. The words of Bruce Kiskadden, set to music by Michael Fleming, here with the Lobo Rangers.
Something that I'm not forgetting, something that I could not say, could not arrange the setting and the scene in the proper way. Here of the desert and mountain and the smoke of the far out camp, the whispering voice of the night wind and the picketed horses tramp, where the tread of the moving cattle and the song that the riders croon, the swing and sway of the saddle that goes to the lilt of the tune. That's why I'm giving you warning. There's some things a cowboy can't tell. The joy's as clear as the morning, tortures akin to hell. These words won't reach outsiders who were raised in the town's confines, but they're here for the hard old riders who can read them between the lines. The quiet night in the summer, when the air's moist and warm, you hear the rumbling thunder, and you watch the approaching storm. When the heavens pour like a funnel, and the devil his own can claim, when the sky is black as a tunnel, and then white with the lightning's flame, it is then that the weak go under, where the calls for hardy breed, the shattering crash of the thunder and the rush of the mad stampede. That's why I'm giving you warning. There's some things a cowboy can't tell. The joy's as clear as the morning. The torture's a king death. These words won't reach outsiders who were raised in the town's confines, but they're here for the hard old riders who can read them between the lines. The terrible grip of the blizzard when the horse and the rider reel, the curse of the snow-blind puncher, and the frostbites to throb and feel. Well, the nights you hate to remember when you lay in the line camp alone, when the gray wolves howled in the timber and the perishing cattle moan. Well, you tried to prevent the slaughter, but the frost and the storm were king. How you chopped the ice from the water and prayed for an early spring. That's why I'm giving you warning. There's some things a cowboy can't tell. The joy's as clear as the morning. The torture's a king death. These words won't reach outsiders who were raised in the town's confines, but they're here for the hard old riders who can read them between the lines. Yes, they're here for the hard old riders who can read them between the lines.
I just glanced through Mike Anfield's 2021 Cowboy Photos calendar, and I finally made it right there on the April page, riding old JJ. Now, when I had this visit with photographer Kim Tayler, she had just found out that one of her works would be selected for the Western Horseman calendar of that year. Kim, I'm so glad we ran into you. Congratulations on having the front cover of the new Western Horseman Cowboy calendar. How did that come about?
Well, thanks, Hugh. I usually submit, 6 or 7 images every year to the Western Horseman calendar when they're putting it together in the year. And I hadn't heard anything about the calendar until I got an email from Doris Daley, and she's like, "Yay, we're a team, we're a Canadian team." She said, "I was commissioned by Western Horseman to do a poem for one of the images on the calendar, and not knowing that it was one of yours." So she said, "I just received my complimentary copy in the mail today." So I emailed Western Horseman and said, I hadn't heard, and there was a change of staff, so communication got lost somewhere in there. So I was pretty elated and feel pretty honored to be able to be on the cover of their calendar, and also the image that's on the inside of the calendar too.
Tell me about the cover image first of all, because that's a pretty familiar looking cowboy riding that buckskin horse across a snow-covered creek bank there. Tell me just a little bit about how that picture came about and who's in it and what's going on.
Well, it was, as you can tell by the image, it's a pretty wintry day, and that's Tom Buse. He was leading a herd of yearlings across the Highwood River just west of Longview. We had gathered and trailed about 300 or 400 head of yearlings down and had to cross them across the river. And so that was during that shot that I did that one.
Did you take a lot of shots that day, or was that one of the few that...
No, I did quite a few crossing the river just because there was lots of, things happening, and we had to kind of take them across in smaller groups just to get them to break through the ice and to cross them. So, and then we trailed them I don't know, probably a mile and a half up to where the corrals were, and then they loaded them onto trucks. So yeah, I rode along the whole way and the whole day, and tried to keep my hands warm.
Well, Kim talks about not only being there to take pictures, but how she's there to do the job right with the cattle when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Anyone who's ridden with the Western photographer Kim Tayler knows that she's not only great with a camera, but she's a good hand and she knows what's going on.
With your cameras, are you there just to take pictures, or I suspect they probably call on you to be in the right place at the right time too?
Yeah, I always try to stay out of the way, for one thing, but I also have a harness that I can hook my camera onto to snap it up so it stays snug and doesn't hit the saddle horn. And so if I do need to give a hand somewhere and help out, then I'm prepared for that too. But for the most part, they always have lots of help, and I'm there mostly to do the photography. But I do love to ride as much as I love to shoot, so I kind of get to have the best of both.
But photography on horseback is kind of a challenge. Now, do you use your own horse, or do they supply one sometimes?
Well, I like to use my own horse if I can, just because he's been doing it for so many years. He's pretty programmed. I've got him trained so that I can just wiggle my line and he'll side pass over to a rock or a stump or whatever, and I can get up on him when I'm carrying my camera, so it's not such a struggle. And he just kind of knows the routine. He's a little bit lazy, so he likes to stand when I'm taking a photo. But also when I've gone to lots of ranches, I've always been mounted on a really well-broke horse, and I always ask them if they're camera-proof.
Yeah. Have you ever had any that weren't, and anything go wrong?
No, there's some of them maybe are a little bit herd-bound or something like that, but no, for the most part, I've been really, really fortunate. So, and very grateful that they help me out when I can't get my own horse there.
Well, Kim talks about how sometimes when they know she's got her camera, the cowboys might pay a little more attention to how they look. And I was digging through the music boxes looking for the appropriate songs to use here, and came across one called She Rides Wild Horses by the Never Sweet Players.
You can't stop her from dreaming, can't tell her when she's done. She's a good old hand, she'll outwork any man. And she is bright like the sunshine and cool as the moon. And she rides wild horses for fun. She rides wild horses for fun. Don't want to tame 'em or break 'em. She just wants to be one with the wind and with the sky. She can't help but feel free and wild. She can't help but feel free and wild. Her hair's like the wheatgrass, long blowing in the wind, and her hands rough as sand from working again, and her eyes blue as lupin on a meadow mountain morning. And she rides wild horses for fun. She rides wild horses for fun. Don't wanna tame 'em or break 'em. She just wants to be one with the wind and with the sky. She can't help but feel free and wild. She can't help but feel free and wild. She steps in the saddle with ease. She stays in the middle She don't ride to please. She rides wild horses for fun. Don't want to tame 'em or break 'em. She just wants to be one with the wind and with the sky. She can't help but feel free and wild. She can't help but feel free and wild.
And now, back to Western Life photographer Kim Tayler.
I think, it seems to me, Baxter Black a few weeks ago had quite a story about a photographer that was no cowboy, but pretty good photographer, I guess, and they put him on a horse they probably shouldn't have, and it turned into quite a wreck with cameras and equipment and light meters flying every which way, I guess. But the guys were all they knew. There's this do you find that sometimes the cowboys, when they know you're along, make sure that they're not wearing a ball cap and earmuffs and sneakers, but they kind of make sure they got the look? If they know Kim's there, they might take a picture.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I've kind of gained a reputation for, if you got a ball cap, you might not end up in my day planner or my calendar, because right. I really stay true to holding, the value that if you care enough about the tradition and wanting to, carry on the values of a cowboy, then, that's it's not just the look, it's also what you're capable of doing, but my heart still holds true to the traditional.
And everything I've ever seen that you've done is that way. And I've seen a lot of pictures, and I guess they're going to happen sometimes where, man, it's just not right. That horse's head is too high, the reins are too tight, his eyes are closed, the rider's out of position in the saddle. Maybe, the rope strap is not hanging properly, or there's, technically something that the average person probably would never notice, but anybody that lives in this world is going to spot that right away.
Yeah, and I really, I guess I've gained respect from the ranchers, or trust maybe is a better word, that they know I'm not going to misrepresent what they do for a living, and how, they care a lot about the animals and the range and the grasslands that they look after. So I have a lot of respect for them and what they do, and I guess I like to carry that through with how I represent what they do too. So yeah, I try to look at my images real hard and put out only the best what I have.
Well, there's more from Kim Tayler in a little while, and Baxter Black is next with a story that'll raise your eyebrows for sure when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, and I'll be right back after this with a little peek at Dunny and the Duck.
Your land is a legacy, a challenge from those who tended it before you to build on their foundations. At Corteva Agriscience, we understand what it means to be the stewards of a legacy. We embrace the challenge of building on the foundation of Dow AgroSciences to maintain your trust, to bring new solutions, to help you care for your land. See how we can help build your legacy at rangeandpasture.com.
And for our Canadian listeners, just check Corteva.ca, the Canadian website.
Have you ever caught a rope under a horse's tail? Now, you'd think an animal in the top 10 of intelligence would lift his tail up and let it fall out, wouldn't you? But no. There are strange tales told in the days of old when cowboys tested their luck. But the queerest portrayal of life on the trail was when Dunny ran off with a duck. The boys and I were driving steers up north and stopped at Heimer to rest the bunch and have some lunch and just restoke our primer. We tied our horses to the fence, commenced to tellin' whoppers, and thus inclined, we watched a line of ducks come hunting hoppers. Those ducks fell in behind our steeds and sorted to their droppings for bits of grass or oats they'd passed, like barnyard fowl out shopping. Young Orville hefted up a duck, which kind of starts this caper. Behind unfazed, old Dunny raised his tail to break a vapor. Why people do the things they do remains a constant wonder. Like Orville there, saw tail mid-air and stuck the duck up under. To say it took his breath away would sure describe old Dunny. And just as true, I reckon, too, that duck was breathing funny, 'cause underneath old Dunny's tail, two wings protruded oddly and filled the air with flying hair. The racket was ungodly. You talk about a hissy fit. Both fur and fowl got ruffled. Above the din, the duck chimed in, although his quack was muffled. Old Dunny reared and broke his reins. The other horses bolted and ran askew while feathers flew like Pegasus had molted. I saw him top a distant hill. I headed home in earnest, like somewhere back he'd been attacked by a drunken taxidermist. Well, young Orville took his chewing square, but we finally all deduced, by Josephine, we'd never seen one ducked instead of goosed. And what about the duck, you ask? Well, he didn't stay for dinner, so I don't doubt he stuck it out, or in, and rode on south for winter. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, brought to you by Corteva Agri-Science.
Not much can raise your stress level more than a tractor breakdown when you need it most. We've all spent hours on the phone and driving around trying to find the right parts, and that's no fun when you're missing something you need to finish the job. Here's a better way. Just go to bctractorparts.com. That's where you can find about any part for any mega tractor. If you're restoring a vintage tractor or just keeping up the maintenance on the ones you're using, you can have the parts you need in a short time. And you know what? There's some great pictures of tractor restoration projects and much more right there at bctractorparts.com. What? Oh, you don't have internet? Well, try calling Mark at 250-395-0960. Just ahead of the Rangeland News, the fine lyrics of Mag Mawiney tell a story that Abe Zacharias interprets in music.
He raised himself up in the stirrups, held the reins loose in his hand, leaned on the horn of the saddle well worn as he gazed at the rich meadowland. He headed due west on a cow trail which circled the old Johnson place. Was a shortcut around to his ranch near the town, where he'd soon see his sweet Jenny's face. He remembered the night that he'd met her at a hoedown in the old country hall. He had hastened the chance to ask her to dance, and he whirled to the square dancer's call. They were married that spring after roundup, and they worked side by side every day. There were 300 head on their small valley spread, which they built as their dream hideaway. His arms held her tight when he kissed her, then he handed to her all aglow a buckle so fine with two hearts intertwined, and the name of their ranch just below. He remembered the night that he'd met her at a hoedown in the old country hall. He had hastened the chance to ask her to dance, and they whirled to the square dancer's call. He remembered the night that he'd met her at a hoedown in the old country hall. He had hastened the chance to ask her to dance, and they whirled to the square dancer's call.
The Rangeland News from the Spirit of the West, a roundup of issues and events from the world of agriculture.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. At the top of page 1, it says food prices at the grocery store went up in early 2020. And that trend might continue as we roll into 2021, and Gary Crawford has more.
When we look back at 2020, most of us will see that we spent about 3.5% more for food at the grocery store than we did in 2019, the biggest yearly price hike in almost 10 years. A lot of those price spikes came early in the year, brought on by disruptions in the food supply chain caused by COVID-19. So each month since then, prices have generally come down a little from their high points, but are still well above what they were in 2019. So what's the outlook for 2021? One economist says don't look for food in general to sell for less than this year. In fact,
grocery store food prices will increase 1 to 2% in 2021.
1 to 2% higher than this year, not lower. But USDA economist Carolyn Chelius says some products, especially meats, may sell for less than this year.
As the supply chain continues to adapt and conditions continue to improve.
Beef, for example, is up 10% from a year ago now. She says we could see beef prices decline next year by maybe as much as 2.5%, still well above pre-COVID levels. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture announced it would grant the National Bison Association's Section 32 request for a surplus purchase of up to $17 million worth of ground bison. And the Canadian government also bought surplus bison through a COVID-19 relief program, but only $560,000 worth. The Canadian Bison Association Executive Director Terry Kremeniuk said there's a backlog in Canada too, primarily due to the slowdown in the restaurant and food service sectors that's pushed both prices and packing down. American bison producers have their marketing sights set on Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea after gaining access to Mexico last year. Just before Christmas, Tyson Foods corrected financial statements that had been filed with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission for its beef segment for fiscal years 2017 through 2020, and the report specifies that Tyson is reporting misappropriation of company funds by one of its beef suppliers. An internal review of the supplier's accounts is underway, Tyson said, with assistance of outside advisors, and that review determined the supplier made misrepresentations regarding the number of cattle the supplier purchased on behalf of the company's beef segment. And Tyson said that cattle inventory was overstated by $285 million. According to Wyoming Game and Fish, the state had its first case of chronic wasting disease, or CWD, in elk, and that was discovered on December the 16th. The cow elk was harvested by a hunter from the Grand Teton National Park, and a sample was taken as part of a mandatory testing program. Well, one of the really good hands who's taken part in a couple of main event trainers challenges, Jason Irwin, has a new TV show called The Horse Trainers. It started airing December the 28th on the Cowboy Channel in Canada and on RFD TV Canada. Now, these stations are available across the country on Shaw Direct and TELUS Optic in Alberta, BC, and Quebec. And if you happen to catch the show, I hope you can pay close attention to the opening and some of the music in the show. Well, at the BC Livestock Producers Co-op Kamloops Yards, there's a bred cow and heifer and regular sale. Tuesday, January 26th, starts at 10 a.m. And if you're thinking of bringing cattle to the sale, you can consign early, and then they can advertise them for you and might bring you a little more. You can call them at 250-573-3939 or email them. And February 25th is the next regular cattle sale at Williams Lake, February 26th in Vanderhoof. Online bidding is available, and you can get all the details at bclivestock.bc.ca. Meanwhile, at the Innisfail Auction Market, regular cattle sales now on every Wednesday again, and there's a pre-sort yearling sale on January the 18th. And you can bring your cattle Sunday between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Call to book them at 1-800-710-3166 and get all the details at InnisvaleAuctionMarket.com. Okay, now the final item. You know, a lot of us were raised with the values of frugality. In our time, boy, money was tight, and we tried not to waste it. And those habits are still with some of us. And it's kind of sad here, but an old ranching couple that we know had been married for over 60 years, and he told his wife not to waste any money on a funeral and just keep it simple. So when he passed away, she called the local paper to put in his obituary. And the editor said, well, we can do that. What would you like it to say? And she says, just this: George died. And the editor was a little bit surprised, and he said, well, you know, that's kind of short. We charge for every 6 words, so you can add another 4 words for the same price. So she thought for a minute, and then she rewrote it this way: George died. Horse trailer for sale. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up in the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I'll give you an example from personal experience that shows how being in a hurry to get the job done can really set back a young horse's progress. And there's more from Kim Tayler when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. The Irvin Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File is coming right up, and I'll tell you about a big mistake I made with a promising young horse. And our dear friend and one of the finest Western gentlemen you could ever meet, Red Stegall, was hospitalized with COVID-19 in December. He had a pretty rough time for a while, but from what I can find out, he's doing better. He's sure in the thoughts of everybody, and this is Red in the Big Circle.
The cattle were scattered for miles across the plain. Odd norther was blowing and threatening rain. Out on the high mesas while searching for strays, we rode at a high lope for most of the day. And we made a big circle and brought them all down through the coulees and draws to the big roundup ground. River was rising from 3 days of rain. We brought them through to the headquarters range. Yes, the Brazos was rising from 3 days of rain. We brought them home to the headquarters range. I was a loner, a drifting cowhand. A girl never figured in my master plan. You came along and you opened my eyes to a feeling I'd never before realized. And we made a big circle and weathered the storm. We found a shelter where we're safe and warm. We've partnered up, girl, and I like the change. Life is complete at the headquarters range. Yes, we've partnered up, girl, and I like the change. I feel at home at the headquarters range. As we ride through life, we are tempted to stray. There's someone to guide us and show us the way. His orders are simple, believe in his word. Shun all that's evil, embrace all that's good. If we've made the big circle with the herd of the dam, our souls can be cleansed by the blood of the Lamb. And if we ask forgiveness, our lives will be changed. We'll join the boss at the headquarters range. Yes, if we ask forgiveness, our lives will be changed. He'll take us home to the headquarters range.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
788, 789.
What you up to?
I'm counting all the saddles here at Irvin Tack and Western Wear. Rumor has it they have over 1,400.
Well, they are Canada's largest Western store with over 100,000 square feet of selection, Western wear with a welcome twist, and so many saddles you'll likely lose count.
700 and... wait, where was I?
See what I mean?
Ugh. One saddle, two saddles.
Saddle up for Irvin's today. Exit 305 off Highway 2 by Crossfield.
Canada's largest Western store.
And it sure is fun shopping online from anywhere at urbansaddles.ca. You know, sometimes an urgent job gets in the way of building a good foundation on a young horse. It can be a tough call, and I've had to make it many times, and sometimes it turns out wrong. Building a solid foundation on a young horse really adds to his value down the road. Taking shortcuts, missing some steps, can come back to bite you later on and can create resistance pretty quick. A few years ago, I got a cowboy call. Some heifers had broken into a neighboring range unit. Could I help a neighbor get them back? Well, I'd been working with a 3-year-old filly for a few months, and she has some challenges. But she was the closest horse, so I caught her and saddled her and loaded her up and hauled her up to the area where I met my neighbor. Unloaded her, got on, and we headed up the trail. And this was the first time I'd done that without going through a thorough warm-up routine, getting her soft and relaxed and willing before I asked for any challenge. Oh, we found the heifers, headed them down the trail toward the gate they needed to go through. They ran past the gate on my side. I had to outrun them and turn them back. Well, my filly had no idea why we were running, and she kind of kicked her heels up and pitched a couple of strides, but we did catch up to the heifers, and then she ran right on past them. I finally got her cranked around, and we did get them through the gate, but by now my filly was really wired. And on the way back to the trailer, she was prancing, puffing, tossing her head, and she showed so much resistance to going downhill that I wondered if we'd be able to do it at all. I got her home. I didn't have a chance to work with her for a couple of months. But the next time I did, I tried riding her out of the yard, and we got about a quarter of a mile away, and that resistance that started earlier came on big time. It was about 2 weeks of rebuilding the foundation before we overcame the resistance that one day had built into her, setting her back. It's a good thing to challenge them, all right, but it's tough to know how much is too much. And if you see your horse getting off the program, developing resistance, and even an indicator is if they start to become hard to catch, they're telling you that you're overloading them, giving them too much too soon. And for our good friends at Irvin Saddles and Western Wear, that's the horse training file. Something that we are convinced really helps keep our horses in good shape and feeling their best is a daily feeding of Hoffman's Horse Ration. And you can find out all about it at hoffmanshorseproducts.com. The way the Canada Revenue Agency deals with ranchers and farmers has changed a lot in the last few years, and the financial decisions we make today can have a long-lasting impact on our bottom line far into the future. It really helps to have a trusted professional who really understands your situation to guide you with all your accounting requirements and your tax preparation. Having an accountant who knows the difference between a Hereford and a heifer, what a slick and backgrounding are, and that Alfalfa and Timothy are not just names from a storybook really helps. Kathy McMillan of PMT Chartered Professional Accountants understands the intricacies of specialized programs like Agri-Stability and Agri-Invest. She understands the demands on your time and can help you spend more time doing your job and less time dealing with endless piles of paperwork. See PMTaccountants.com or call toll-free 877-383-8081. Kim Taylor's wonderful photographs of Western life can be seen in her many calendars and daytimers. They feature the people and the landscapes from all over the country, and I wondered if she had a favorite place.
Now, one more question for you, Kim. You ride and work and photograph in that beautiful Cypress Hills and Sand Hills country of southeastern Saskatchewan and all through the cattle country of Alberta and in places like the Nicola Valley and the Peace River country of BC. What are some of the bigger differences that a keen observer like you might notice in the way things are done, say from BC to Alberta, Saskatchewan? Do you notice any subtle differences in the styles, the gear, the way things are done?
Yeah, for the main part, there's quite a bit of similarity as far as how they handle the cattle and the type of gear. I guess the biggest difference is just in the landscape and the terrain. Difference between working out in the open prairies and the miles that you cover. Like lots of times I've been riding in 22 section fields, and you long trot thinking you're never going to hit the east fence, and or out in British Columbia or even Western Alberta, whether you're into the mountains and the terrain. I wasn't very keen on heights when I first started doing this, and some of the trails I had to ride up in some of the mountainous country. It was kind of took my breath away a few times, and my horse wasn't real acclimatized to the rougher terrain either. But him and I are both kind of learned together. So
yeah, from that one, Kim, and thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Hugh, and all the best. Thank you.
Great.
Now, as Kim is still recovering from the effects of that horse wreck, many of her friends are helping with the marketing of her 2021 calendars and daytimers. Gina Lacoste has her calendars and daytimers here at her house, and they are there for pickup only. And you can contact Gina at 403-548-8722 to get more information on how to obtain Kim Taylor's material.
Faded jeans and high heels, hay bales in the back. She climbs into that pickup truck, then heads out past the tracks. Another day, another buck. She does it just because she's trying hard to help her man, just like her mama does. She'll change her clothes, help with the chores, then put some supper on. She'll dance around the table, then get the dishes done. And being bored is something she's only heard about. She says her prayers, then goes to bed just as her day runs out. Farmer's daughter, a diamond in the rough. Farmer's daughter, she's tender and she's tough. Soft and sweet, she comes complete with a love for countryside. She's stronger than most any man, better keep her on your side. Farmer's daughter. Good at keeping secrets, she can tell what's wrong or right. She has a way of knowing when to run or fight. She's got a tattoo of a kitten, not just anybody sees. There's a whole side of this farm girl that she saves just for me. Farmer's daughter, a diamond in the rough. Farmer's daughter, she's gentle and she's gruff. Soft and sweet, she comes complete with a warm and tender smile. She's more fun than anyone for at least a country mile. Farmer's daughter, farmer's daughter, farmer's daughter.
Tom Cole, of course, and that super sweet steel guitar mastery of Bo Hughes, Farmer's Daughter. And Tom, as most of you know by now, is producing more of the homebound concerts on YouTube, and they are better than just about anything on network TV these days. Next is the classic Song of the West and the charming Doris Daley in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. This week's classic Western song was written by Johnny Mercer for the film Rhythm on the Range and sung by the star Bing Crosby back in 1936. It became a big hit and was actually reached number 2 on the Billboard charts of the day. And members of the Western Writers of America chose it as the top 100 or one of the top 100 Western songs of all time. It's been done by all kinds of folks, including Roy Rogers in the 1943 movie King of the Cowboys, and Michael Martin Murphey and the great Ray Benson, and Asleep at the Wheel bring it back today. I'm an old cowhand.
I'm an old cowhand from the Rio Grande, but my legs ain't bowed and my cheeks ain't tan. I'm a cowboy who never saw a cow, never roped a steer 'cause I don't know how. I sure ain't fixing to start in now. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay. Oh yeah. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay.
And I'm an old cowhand. I come down from the Rio Grande and I learned to ride, ride before I learned to stand. I'm a riding fool who is up to date. I know every trail in the Lone Star State 'cause I ride this range in a Ford V8. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay.
Well, we're old cowhands from the Rio Grande, and we come to town just to hear the band. We know all the songs that the cowboys know about the big corral where the doggies all go, 'cause we learned them all on the radio. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay. Yeah. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay.
And I'm an old cowhand down from the Rio Grande, where the West is wild, all around the borderland, where the buffalo roam around the zoo, the Indians run up a rug or two, the old Bar X is just a barbecue. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay.
I'm a pioneer who began from scratch. I don't bat an eye in a suit or a hat. Sure. They don't call me Elmer, they call me Satch. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay. Yeah. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay. Oh boy. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay. 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 I'm talking. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay. Yippee-i-oh-ki-yay.
Oh, yeah. Well, for the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight today, the question is, what is a Westerner? Doris Daley, what is behind this poem?
A couple of years ago at Elko, I was on a panel discussion, really. It wasn't so much an entertainment session in one of the breakout rooms as kind of a panel discussion, and the topic was, what is a Westerner? And I thought, golly, why do they have the cowboy poets talking about that. I can do poetry, but I'm no more or no less qualified to answer the question, what is a Westerner, compared to the vet or the feedlot operator or the waitress at the coffee shop or the cowboy. So I figured the only way I could attend that session with any self-respect was to maybe put my thoughts about what is a Westerner into a poem. What is a Westerner? A Westerner knows that goodnight loving is a trail and not a one-night stand. A cowboy's worth his salt if he's made of grit and sand. He has a stack of Western horsemen's piled 3 feet deep. A Westerner is frugal, but by gum, he's never cheap. If tickets for Las Vegas in December come his way, they aren't to see Celine or attend Cirque du Soleil. He knows blue's a steer, red's from Texas, black's a large animal vet. He's a cowboy-booted prince, awash in operating debt. He's not impressed with Donald, Leonardo, Brad, or George, but admires Wilfred Brimley, 'cause Wilf team ropes and eats porridge. A Westerner knows the name of every local weatherman, a workin' wife, and a lotto ticket's his best financial plan. He's a bow-legged, hard-headed, soft-hearted, thick-skinned, fancy dancer, high romancer, chiseled by the western wind. He's the last to leave the dance floor. He's the first to tip his hat. He keeps the cowboy arts alive. God bless him just for that. Being a Westerner has less to do with longitude and more to do with attitude, less to do with grass and grit and more to do with gratitude. It's getting throwed and eating dirt, but finishing the ride. He needs no definition when it comes to cowboy pride. A Westerner is one who takes the bitter with the sweet. High society is pitch and camp at 7,000 feet. Ian Tyson sings his anthems. Glenorland makes him laugh. Bankers make him nervous. Federales make him chaff. A Westerner seeks no long farewell when his time is come. A setting sun, a whispered prayer, a shot of good dark rum. What is a Westerner? I'll let the experts fuss. My answer to that question's, friends, is it's you, it's me, it's us.
Well, thanks again for riding along this week, and I sure hope you can be back here next week at the same time when we'll do it all again. And as always, thanks to Mark and Kathy McMillan, the official Spirit of the West support crew. And be sure and check out the latest issue of Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine. You can subscribe online at cowboycountrymagazine.com. And I hope you can check out our YouTube version of the show with great video, and you can also download the podcast version. You find the links to do that at our website, hugh-mclennan.com. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. I sure hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.